it gives me great pleasure to introduce Svyatoslav Lipsky. Now, Svyatoslav was born in Moscow, Russia. He graduated in 2006 with a degree in teaching languages and has taught English in schools ever since. In 2009, he defended a PhD thesis in pedagogy. He's been studying the Theosophical literature since 1999 and attended his first TS meeting in 2009. In 2012, he was instrumental in creating a website, www.theosophy.ru, which is devoted to the life and works of HPB and provides free access to the texts translated into Russian. Svyatoslav has been a member of the Theosophical Society, Adyar, since 2019, a speaker and interpreter at several conferences. He's a member of the White Lotus Theosophical Group in Moscow. In the last 10 years, this group has organized many different events, workshops, lectures, White Lotus Day celebrations, etc. Svyatoslav's topic this evening is the role of art in our life and on the spiritual path. Svyatoslav, it's lovely to have you here again with us. Looking forward to what you've got to share and spend time with you. So over to you, and Sushma will organize the technical side with you and we'll get underway. So welcome.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the invitation. It's a great pleasure and honor for me to be here with you and to share some ideas on art and the role of art in our life and on spiritual path. I will now share my presentation. Here we go. Can you see it?
Yes, all good.
Okay. So, thank you very much also for the topic, because the topic itself is, I think, very interesting, and obviously it's vast. So I think we can only hope to touch on some aspects of it, but hopefully some ideas we can exchange today will be interesting, beneficial for us, and some good food for thought for the future. And we could start by asking the question, what is art? And in my personal view, art is something that makes us better when we perceive it. And when we say perceive in this context, I think we can specify that we mostly speak about seeing and hearing, as at least for me, it's difficult to imagine that we can perceive something very beautiful, great, and transformative through the three other senses of smell, taste, and touch. Well, at least it's something to think about. And we know that in Buddhist system, for example, there is also the sense of mind, the sixth sense, which perceives ideas. And ideas can certainly be beautiful and magnificent and constitute art, I believe. And so it seems to me that art is that which transforms us for the better when we perceive it, mostly through these three of the six senses. At the same time, to me personally, not everything that is called art today constitutes art. There are many products of especially modern movements in art which can be clever and at times attractive, but I don't think we can truly perceive it as beautiful or transformative. Of course, as the saying goes, tastes differ, or the Russian version of it, there is no comrade for taste and color. However, to me, it is the main touchstone to see and to determine if something is art. Well, let's say a piece of music or a painting or anything else, if that really makes people better who perceive it. There are many cases where it is doubtful. Some people may hesitate to determine it, but there are also cases where I think it can hardly be disputed. And one instance of this I can recall, where I was watching some report in the news, I think, or somewhere in TV. Some years ago, there was a performance in Moscow of one of Richard Wagner's operas. I think it was Lohengrin, I believe. And it was performed in Moscow, and people were saying, coming out of the opera house, that I'm not the same person that I was when I entered the building. So in the occasion of great examples of art, I think this transformation is obvious. I will refer to the ideas of Nicholas Roerich and his son Svyatoslav Roerich today, because they gave their lives to art and to thinking about it, and also because some of their ideas and works have helped me in my life, and I took a lot from them, and I will mention that later. So Nicholas Roerich was also a very prominent spiritual teacher of the 20th century, and this tradition is especially strong in Russia. And he was also a very widely known artist and a famous humanitarian. And his younger son, called Svyatoslav, also became a very famous artist. So closer to the end of his life, he mentioned that neither he nor his father ever really valued abstractionism as an important or valuable form of art. That's not his painting, by the way. It's just a very good picture I found on the internet. So he said that that was because there is nothing better than nature, and we cannot really make up anything that would be more perfect or more beautiful than nature. And he referred to this abstractionism kind of products of art as a creation of surface. And he said that sometimes it can be a very beautiful surface, but it is not an art that could produce any valuable thoughts. And he insisted that we need images, because our whole life consists of images. So if we address people through our art, we should do it creating images, and through images we should come across and get our messages across. So perhaps not all that is called art in everyday life is a true art, and while it may be not so easy to decide sometimes, but it seems that true art has to produce a certain beneficial effect, addressing or reaching the human being. Another way of looking at what art is to say that art is a combination of matter which expresses or manifests a certain idea. And we know that everything that exists in our world is an incarnation of a certain idea. HVB has an article, a very small article called Footnotes to the Tide of Life. The Tide of Life was, I believe, a small piece of writing produced by a husband of her sister, Vera. And she wrote some comments called Footnotes to the Tide of Life. So she writes, in 1888, countless myriads of forms are in that ideal sphere, and matter exists in the astral light, or even in the atmosphere that has passed through all forms possible for us to conceive of. All that the adept has to do is to select the abstract form desired, then to hold it before him with the force and intensity unknown to the man of this hurried age, while he draws into its boundaries the matter required to make it visible. How easy it is to say, how difficult to believe, yet quite true, as many a theosophist very well knows. The oftener this is done with any one form, the easier it becomes. And so it is with nature. Her ease of production grows like a habit. And thinking along these lines, we see that nature itself can be seen as divine art, being a form taken by matter in which a divine idea is incarnated. This is a very interesting picture, because it's not anything artificially made, as far as I understand. At least it's a living piece of plant in the picture. But usually when we say art, the word art, we refer to the works of human mind, manifested on the level of form, sound, thought, and so on. So perhaps we could add this to our attempted definition of art and suggest that art is an expression of an elevated idea created by a human being, which transforms us for the better when we perceive it through 3 of our 6 senses. Well, that of course is a suggestion. Then there is a quotation from Agni Yoga, book 1, verse 2, saying, "Pure art is the authentic communication of the radiant manifestation of the spirit. Through art, you have the light." And also, speaking about it and considering that true art has to address a human being and produce a certain beneficial effect, it brings me to the next part of my talk, where I would like to discuss what does art do for us, what is its influence in our lives. And Nicholas Roerich wrote in an article called Fiery Fortress in 1932, no matter how people may quarrel, no matter how wild or brutish they may turn, they fall silent, united by the sound of a powerful symphony, and stop bickering in a museum or under the vaults of Notre Dame de Paris. So we see that as a result of this inner transformation that happens to us when we perceive true art, our consciousness expands. It comes to realize some ideas that it could not contain before, transcending its limitations. And another aspect of it is that there are certain beautiful elevated feelings that we can experience, which may make us morally better, changing and perfecting our character. As an example, we may think that if a person is used to reading and thinking only about honest behavior, and well, that person would not be inclined to lie. Or let's say someone who is used to thinking about heroic deeds and heroic behavior and really admires it, well, such person may be much less inclined to disloyalty or cowardice. I will add here a little bit of my personal experience with art in this life, because of course, naturally, this is a prism through which I view all these things. And I would like to share certain things from my experience. When I was a child, before going to school, I used to listen to some music using a vinyl record player. It was long ago, and I remember I liked one piece of music I liked back then. Was another version of a Soviet musical cartoon called Town Musicians of Bremen, and it has some very beautiful singing by a very famous Soviet singer called Muslim Magamayev. I would like to listen for 1 minute of one of the songs. He's singing, "Night will pass, clear morning will come, happiness is waiting for us. stormy and gloomy time will pass, and the sun will rise, the sun will rise. And the songs in this production are about love and also about love to nature. It so happened that my eldest sister went to study at children's music school at some point, and she chose piano, which I think is a wise choice in many ways. Well, for one thing, you don't have to stand all the time when you play. For another, you don't have to carry it with you every time you go to school and back home. So looking at that, I naturally asked my parents, when am I going to go? And so I was sent to school as well. And I was choosing between flute and violin, and decided on violin. And although I enjoyed some aspects of my study at school, but mostly it was a difficult experience for me. So finally free after 6 or 7 years, after that I didn't touch it for about 13 years after that. In 2008, I had a certain difficult period in my life, maybe the most difficult period so far. And I felt almost no motivation to go on, basically. So I had to rethink many things and to start from scratch in many ways. So I was looking to the meaning of my life then, and I was also reading some articles of Nicholas Erich, and especially two of them really gave me ideas that illumined my mind and showed me the path to walk, and also gave me inspiration. So I would like to share some ideas from those articles. The first is called The Paths of Blessing. What I took from them basically is that there is a higher essence in us, something that we Theosophists often call our true self or our higher self, referring to our higher mind, Buddhi, nature, and Atma. And Nicholas Erich calls this spirit in his articles. So it is our guide and our supreme helper in any difficulties and hardships that we may face in our lives. So the question is how to connect to it, how to reach it, or how to invite this guidance and this help to our life. And Nicholas Erich expresses the idea that it can be achieved by increasing knowledge and beauty in our lives, engaging into processes of learning and creative arts. So he says, beauty and wisdom are not luxury or privilege, but joy destined to the whole world. We should not only speak about them, but introduce them in our daily personal and social life. Art and knowledge support the altar of the deity. And he insists on really bringing it into practice to achieve some beneficial effects. He writes, nowadays, especially, it feels so strange to feel the joy of art. Many people speak about it, but so few bring it in their life. About 1/10 of all people. 20% only speak about it. 70% do not know, or better to say, do not remember what art is anymore. It is good to ask ourselves at least once a week, what have we done for art within these 7 days? And how to bring art into our life? Where are these blessed paths? Maybe they are inaccessibly difficult or too expensive, or only spiritual giants dare to tread them. No, all excuses will be unconvincing. Many people go to church at the end of the week. Many people remember at the end of the week how much they have to pay for their bills. But not many people remember at least once a week what they have contributed within the 7 days to beauty and knowledge. It was written in 1921, and 1 year before in another article called Adamant. He writes about art and knowledge, saying art and knowledge, beauty and wisdom. Entering the path of their life, a child knows instinctively a value of decoration and learning. Only later in life, this prayer of spirit grows dim under the grimness of distorted life. And in the realm of vulgarity, it seems untimely or unnecessary anymore. Among the horrors, among the strife, among the clashes of peoples, today the question of knowledge and art is the most relevant. Don't be surprised. It is not exaggeration, not a verbality. This is a decisive affirmation. Then there is another very inspiring idea. He writes, this is not a general statement, not empty words. This is a resolute aspiration. The only pillars of life are art and knowledge. It is in our hard days, in our difficult times, that we shall firmly remember these bright driving forces. And in trials and in battles, we preach it with all the strength of our spirit. You say, it is difficult for us. How can we think of knowledge and beauty when there is nothing to live for? We are far away from knowledge and from art. It is necessary to arrange important things first. I answer you, your words are true, but they are also a lie. Knowledge and art are not luxuries. Knowledge and art are not idleness. It is a prayer and a spiritual effort. Do you think people only pray when they have a full stomach or get drunk or in careless idleness? No, they pray in the most difficult moments. So this prayer of the spirit is most needed when our whole being is shaken and needs a firm foothold, when we seek a wise decision. And where can we find a firm support? What will illumine our spirit brighter than this? So I found when I was reading it in, I think, 2008, I found this argument amazing and really eye-opening. If beauty and art are the ways we attract the guidance and support of our higher principles, so this is our prayer, because this is the function of the prayer, to do this. And this is exactly what we should do in the darkest and most difficult times, because that's the moment when people pray in great danger or in despair. So it's amazing to think. I mean, that's an amazing idea, and also very hard to argue, I think. And also he continues writing, let us remember how often while working we forgot about food and did not notice wind, cold, or heat. Our aspiring spirit shrouded us in an impenetrable cloak. Then he quotes from the Bhagavad Gita, saying that it can never be cut to pieces by any weapon, not burned by fire, not moistened by water, not withered by the wind. It is indestructible, eternal, unworn, and immutable. And he writes, so what are these words about? It's about human spirit. So we don't even know the limits of the power of our spirit. And we don't even know ourselves through what insurmountable obstacles our spirit lifts us and bring us down to earth again unharmed and eternally renewed. So he says, when you are in distress, when you seem to be in despair, do you not feel that a helper is already rushing to your aid? But its way is long and our cowardice is quick. But it is coming and bringing you both the sword of fortitude and the smile of courage. But how or with what will you summon your spirit? How can you open something which many people have covered with the rubble of the household? I say and I repeat, by the beauty of art, by the depth of knowledge. In them, solely in them, lie the victorious spells of the spirit, and the purified spirit will tell you which knowledge is true, which art is genuine. I trust that you will be able to summon your spirit to your aid. It, your guide, will show you the best ways. It will lead you to joy and victory. But to the victory, it will also lead you by a path whose steps are forged only by knowledge and beauty. So there are many other precious ideas in these texts about the significance of knowledge and beauty for the society in general, but that's not the focus of my talk today, so I will not speak about it, except I will mention that as for each of us individually, so for the society in general, it is a path to happiness, to prosperity and unity, I think. And there is one quotation which I was especially inspired
Okay, Svyatoslav will be back with us shortly, folks.
You are mute, Svyatoslav.
Yeah. Okay, just hold on, folks. Yeah, hang on. Yeah, he's just texted me. Hang on. Okay, his computer's playing up. He will be back with us in a couple of moments.
Yes, over to you.
So one particular idea that I felt was very, very inspiring about the influence of art and beauty on the society was expressed by Nicholas Roerich in this article, where he writes, not only museums, theaters, schools, libraries, station buildings and hospitals should be decorated, but prisons should also be beautiful. And then there will be no more prisons. I think that's decent. And he finishes his article, Adamant, by quoting two other great people. One is Swami Vivekananda, who he writes, Swami Vivekananda says of the importance of art, do not you see I am above all a poet, that man cannot be truly religious who has not the faculty of feeling the beauty and grandeur of art. Not appreciation of art is gross ignorance. And the other one, Rabindranath Tagore, writes, he concludes his what is art by saying, in art the person is in us, is sending its answer to the Supreme Person, who reveals himself to us in a world of endless beauty across the lightless world of facts. Swami Vivekananda's books were the friends of the family, as Helen Roerich wrote, and Rabindranath Tagore was himself a big friend of the family. When they lived in India, they had mutual visits from time to time. So to continue a bit with my personal experience, inspired by this, these are my portraits. By all these tremendous ideas, I saw that gaining knowledge through study and bringing beauty into my life through art was a path for me to increase light in my life and to bring this invisible help of my spirit closer and to bring myself closer to it. And I also felt that it is my true treasure. The knowledge and the skills that I have, they are not in the external world. So the external world is so impermanent and subject to change. But these things, they are inside me, something that cannot be taken from me and that would always stay with me. So that is the chest of treasures that I really should feel. I started not with drawing and painting. I started with violin. I tried to revive my violin exercises in 2009, taking some private lessons. And in many ways, it was a very pleasant experience. But I quickly realized that to learn to play well enough, I needed to invest so much energy and time that I didn't have. And I felt that I had to learn to play well enough to play for others. Playing just for myself would never satisfy me. So unfortunately, it was incompatible with my way of life. Therefore, I abandoned it, and instead I turned to painting and drawing. I think it started in 2012 or 2011, I'm not sure. And I visited a studio in the city where I live for adults. And then I got to know an interesting person who is an artist, a professional, and she has a group of her own. So we get together from time to time. And basically, I practice these two things, painting for still nature and some landscapes from the internet, and also portraits, of course. So I would like to share some of the things that I've learned from the experience that I find quite valuable. The first thing is, it's interesting that when you play music, you have to do it all now. It exists in the moment. You cannot put your song or your music piece on pause and return to it next week when you have some more time. And painting and drawing is not like that. Your work can wait for as long as you make it wait. And unless, of course, you have a deadline, but that's more for professional artists, of course. Then I thought that maybe music and drawing and painting relate to each other like fire and water. I'm not sure what to make of it yet. It's an idea in information, but it's an interesting thing to think about, I think. So in very practical terms, I found this way of creative development much more forgiving, so to say, and much more compatible with my life. Then it's actually hard. Another thing that I learned, when, let's say, on Friday evening you come to your class tired after a long week, you have to make an actual effort to make it happen. So it's not just some restful thing all the time you do for fun. It requires effort. Another thing is that you have to keep a focused attention for the period of your work, and that is like meditation. Of course, it's not so deep, not so concentrated. You can actually pay attention to things around, but it's also a focused stream of attention which produces some similar results, similar to meditation practice. Your mind becomes calmer, and when you come out of the room, you are much more peaceful and balanced than before. And also I found that you look at the world and see things that you didn't see before, like the leaves are very nice, this tree is so beautiful, things like that. So your vision changes. Another thing, surprisingly, sometimes it takes some courage. I wouldn't be able to guess that before I tried. But when, let's say, you work for 2 hours making a sketch, preparing a detailed sketch with a pencil, making mistakes, correcting them, and it is finally ready, and you know that the next thing you have to do is to put watercolors on it. And those who tried know that watercolors are unforgiving. You cannot cover them with endless layers, one on top of the other, like you can do with oils. So we feel kind of hesitation in this situation. And I remember our teacher making fun of us, saying, afraid. So it takes some courage, you know. And then another thing is, a very important lesson, I feel, is that you really have to try and learn to keep the entire picture in your sight all the time. So you work carefully on one object of the painting, and you have to be really concentrated on it. But if you lose sight of the whole picture, no matter how well you do this particular part, it will not be part of the whole. So you may easily end up having a pile of disconnected objects in your painting. And that, as far as I understand, well, you can consider it an exercise maybe, but it's not a painting. So this dual focus of attention is a hard thing to do, but it is a key to success, I think. And it really, I think, has some reference to our ideas of altruism and egotism versus altruism, selflessness. Another thing is sometimes you have to just let things go. Things we would like to see maybe more perfect, better accomplished, but life is life, and you have to learn to do what you can and move on. For some people, it's a difficult lesson. I think for me, it's not so easy, as there are such things as, you know, perfectionism and earth signs of zodiac who want to be thorough. And I think Röhrich wrote in some of his articles, at the end of the day, when is the painting finished? It is never finished, but circumstances may force you to part with it. And as our people say here, you cannot finish it, but you can stop it. So you have to let yourself create the way you can, be content with it, and let it go. And another thing I would like to point out is this simplicity beyond complexity. So when we start, we draw and paint very simply. when we look at some paintings of great artists, like some Himalayan landscape paintings by Nicholas Roerich, they're also very simple. The difference is he can actually paint in great detail, and he has paintings with great realism in it. Or he can choose it to do it in a very simple way. So it's his conscious choice according to his design as an artist. He doesn't choose to do it simply because he cannot do it any other way. So both he and some beginner may paint very simply, but for different reasons. And in the case of a masterful artist, it will be simplicity beyond complexity. So using the same principle in our theosophical life, sometimes I hear people say that you should just relax, just live on. Revelation comes when it comes. You cannot help it anyway. Effort is useless, and so on. So I think maybe great masters of Zen could say sometimes things like all they do is sleep when they sleep, eat when they eat, walk when they walk, and so on. And it's all very well, but how about the path they have walked to get to that state of consciousness? Wasn't there tremendous effort involved there? And so you can stand, I think, you can stand on the plain, or you can stand on the mountaintop, and you can do both things without effort. But between these two, you have to climb all the way. HUB has an article called Spiritual Progress, 1885, and she opens it with epigraph from Cristina Rossetti. Does the road wind uphill all the way? Yes, to the very end. Does the journey take the whole long day from morn to night, my friend? And HUB says in the beginning that's it's like an epitome of the life of those who are truly treading the path which leads to higher things, from Vedas to Upanishads, to the recently published Light on the Path. Search as we may through the Bibles of every race and cult, we find but one way, hard, painful, troublesome, by which man can gain the true spiritual insight. And how can it be otherwise, since all religions and philosophies are but variants of the first teachings of the one wisdom imparted to man at the beginning of the cycle of the planetary spirit, by the planetary spirit. So it feels strange. I feel strange sometimes to hear people just saying standing relaxed is all you need to do. Well, and to conclude my talk for today, I would like to share from my personal experience and to confirm that yes, it works. Through art, we have the light in our life. Thank you very much.